the nation right now has got its eyes on Virginia because we're really the main state. There's only New Jersey's doing something, but we're the ones with the major election in an off year, and so therefore some people are looking at it as maybe a harbinger of what's to come. But looking at where we are right now, I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's rather interesting how things have been unfolding over the last couple of years. There's nobody I've talked to that hasn't noticed that the world seems upside down. Everything is backwards and twisted around, and it all happened fairly quickly. But one thing I know is that there's the push towards socialism, communism, Marxism, all that stuff. One world order. One time people laughed, oh, that's conspiracy theory. But no, actually, plenty of people have confirmed, yeah, there's a push for one world order, no surprise there. But you can't have any of that with an armed populace. That doesn't work. So if your goal is socialism or communism, you've got to disarm the people that are going to be the subjects of that. And we're seeing that, and the mechanism that's being used is to make crime look like it's through the roof, or maybe try to make it go through the roof. So things are being done, for example, defunding the police. What could go wrong with that, right? They're restricting the police, like, well, don't, you can look at what happened in Charlottesville, don't let the two groups merge, and don't you guys stand down, you police stand down. They were ordered to stand down, and that didn't turn out well. You've got things like that going on. You've got demoralization with the police. Boy, I've been talking to some chiefs of police, and some of them are having a very hard time finding officers because they're targeted. They're not. They're getting fired if they do their job. They're not being protected legally very well, and it's a very tough job that they're doing. So that means again that's the thing that'll really bring crime down is a really good police force that's busy enforcing laws. Well, that's all being cut back. At the same time, they're releasing a lot of criminals early, making it easier for them to get back out on the streets. It's kind of like, and of course some of these are minor crimes, or they're not dangerous people, but some of them are. And you could kind of imagine how upset people would be if somebody went out to the zoo that we've got out in Chesterfield and took one of the lions out and turned it loose in downtown Richmond. It'd be, well, what were you doing? He's a predator. That predator will find things, and they might be people, to eat or hurt. Yes, that's what predators do. They prey on people. So if you're putting any kind of violent criminal out, you're putting predators on the street. That's what they do. If they come back out, they'll be looking for prey. Again, not all of them are that way, but I'm concerned about the violent ones, the ones that have a history of doing harm, rape, robbery, murder. Not the guy writing a hot check or taking drugs or whatever that's not dangerous. So you get that mix out there. And then you got the media, which, by the way, if you notice how when Trump was in, boy, there were riots going on here and this and that and the other. And then suddenly a party switch, and it's gotten kind of quiet. The media's not beating drums anymore. People aren't out protesting statues. All that stuff just magically just vaporized. So the media was a part of this as well. But crime continues really to be, unfortunately, focused in certain pockets that if those areas suddenly stopped having crime, just a few areas, like one area in most of your big cities, then suddenly the murder rate would drop down to almost nothing in America. It's not that the people being attacked by people misusing guns is not that frequent in most of the country. There are just areas where that is high. But again, the media plays it up like, oh boy, we're under attack everywhere we look. And the whole idea is to get you to come crawling to government saying, oh, we've got to do something about the crime. And the government simply says, well, yeah, we can do something, but we got to get rid of the guns. And that's just the way it is. And the hope would then be that people would give them up, trading their guns for some temporary security from the government that wouldn't probably pan out very well. It never does. It's interesting how silent the Democrat Party, and this is the frustrating part. The Democrat Party and the Republican Party, they should both be standing behind the Constitution, and they should both be fighting over who could be better on protecting that right. Just like our other rights, they should be standing in unison, and then we can differ on other policies, social policies. They may have completely different ideas. They're fine. But our basic human rights should be celebrated and supported by both parties. But unfortunately, the Democrat Party has just, as the whole elected group, except for like in Virginia, we have one Democrat, one out of the entire General Assembly that voted 100% on guns. One. The rest of them were all well below the worst Republican. So there's this divide of, if you look at voting records, of red being Republicans at the top and then going down as they get weaker and weaker on guns, and then a big gap, and then there are the Democrats. It didn't used to be that way. You used to have a blend. You'd see blue and red intermixed as you had some really good Democrats on guns and so forth. That's all changed. So so the battle has really become, on guns, Republican over Democrat. It shouldn't be that way, but that seems to be the way it is. The other thing that's going on is I think there's a lot of demoralization about voting. And the way we're going to turn this ship around is we got to vote. And some people are going, well, the elections seem rigged, and all that. Well, if they were rigged, things would be very different. For example, right now, McAuliffe was all about gun control when he first threw his hat in the ring. We're going to do assault weapon bans. We're going to restrict magazines. We're going to get rid of suppressors, and the list goes on and on. But if you notice, like in the debates, guns didn't come up at all. Dead quiet. And it's been very quiet around the state on guns right now because the election is a little over a month away. Coincidence? I'm not a big fan of coincidences, but I think that's very interesting and very telling. Clearly, there's a little bit of fear there that if gun owners are awake come election time, things may not go quite so well for the gun control side. And I think that's quite true. We remember how many these huge turnouts we had for the Second Amendment sanctuaries. So we basically need to wake up gun owners. We need to get 40% of them apparently are not registered to vote. How is that possible? In what alternate universe would you not be registered to vote, especially as a gun owner with all of your rights under attack? We view the Second Amendment as a canary in a coal mine. When that canary's gone, everything else is going to follow with it. And that's why there's such a push to disarm us. And I still hear the other side saying, well, nobody's coming for your guns. Well, excuse me, what is an assault weapon ban but coming for my guns? I mean, they can't say that. They've clearly crossed that line a long time ago. So Virginia is sitting with the Democrats have a 5-vote majority in the House out of 100 votes, so 5%, and 2 votes in the Senate. Senate's not up for election. The entire House is up for election. And this is the first year I can think of where literally every seat has a Republican challenging a Democrat. Last time around, 40 Democrats got to skate because they had nobody challenging them. So they could give their money to other Democrats. They could do all kinds of. Now they can't do that. Every one of them is being challenged. And that's good. There should always be that way. All the districts should always have a challenger from both parties. People should always have a choice. And the Republicans this year have done their part on that. There are 3 Republican seats that are unopposed. But the other offices are also up for grabs. The governor, we know the importance of a governor, what they can do. And if you hadn't thought a lot about it, you learned a lot about what a governor can do with executive powers over the last 8 years or so. And we have the Attorney General. Our Attorney General currently, Mark Herring, he signs he goes on with the amicus briefs for every gun control scheme across the country. So if they come up with some gun control scheme and it's in the courts in California, our Attorney General is there supporting may issue type. In fact, that's what he's doing with New York. We are a shall issue state, but he's not standing with our own state. He would be better served to live in New York. I don't know why he lives in Virginia. It makes no sense. But he wants to side with New York and their crazy gun laws that from the very beginning were aimed at controlling minorities. And it was the Italians where it started in New York. They didn't want them to have guns. So it's frustrating. And this, again, is a reminder of why we definitely need a different Attorney General, one that will stand with the state that he's supposed to, he swore an oath. And I guess he had his fingers crossed when he did it. So we need, again, also a strong Attorney General would be looking to get reciprocal agreements with other states so that we can carry guns in more states by working hard to get reciprocal agreements. If you recall, it was this Attorney General that tried to strike down like 25 states at one point. He said, yeah, we're not going to do reciprocity. We're not going to honor 25 states, which meant they wouldn't be honoring us. He did that, and it came down with such fury with gun owners that, boy, and Democrat gun owners as well. Everybody said, no, you're not. I need to carry in Tennessee and Kentucky and North Carolina and so forth. That brought down such fury that that time Governor McAuliffe signed a bill that said that Virginia's going to honor all permits, period. And Herring wasn't even around for any of that. He suddenly had other things to do. He was thrown under the bus and rolled over a few times by McAuliffe that year. They listened. They heard that roar coming up before an election from gun owners, and they're worried about that roar again. So one of the solutions that I see out there is the Democrats pushed hard for in-person early voting. Good, perfect, actually. I like this. Because a lot of gun owners, when it comes to the day to vote, things come up. The kids are sick. Geez, I got to work late today. Blah, 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 blah. This means that already right now you can go and vote all during the week. And you vote, we're saying vote in person. Don't vote through the mail. Vote in person. Get your friends and family to go with you to the polls. Pick a convenient day. Now you can do it. It's not just one day. You can pick a convenient day. Everybody go to the polls, and we need to get people registered. If you got a friend that's a gun owner that's not registered, get them registered. There's no excuse for not being registered. One thing I tell people too in winning the state back is to do things like write pro-gun letters to the newspapers. A lot of people read those letters to the editor. You can get a lot of influence in there by doing that, especially right before an election. We're fighting localities that are passing local gun control. The Democrats made that a possibility last year, and out of 194 localities, so far 14 have done it. So it's a very small number. And our view is we cede no ground. Every locality that tries to do this, the only exception was Petersburg, because we learned about it too late. But we're pushing back against Petersburg's gun control hard right now. Even though they passed it, there's a possibility we can do a little, maybe even a repeal. So, main thing is get involved in politics, donate money, donate your time, become a poll watcher, all of that stuff. We need people out there, especially right now with the elections, the integrity being an important thing that we're all watching out for. We need to make sure our elections are indeed fair, but we cannot let anything discourage us from voting. Don't do that, because the other side would love that. If the gun owners said, there's no point in voting, that's what they would love. We can't do that. Simply cannot do that. I can do a little Q&A if anybody would like. We can go anywhere you want on guns. Do you have any? Yes, yes, sir. Well, it's kind of hard. The main thing right now is the biggest threat is if we lose this next election, because it'll be 2 years before the next one, and we know how this cycle works. And the Republicans play the same game. Basically, right after an election, you've got a whole year when there's nothing going on. So that's when you tend to pound with all this gun control. That's what they did in 2020. Now, because of that massive 50,000 person rally that we had that same year, all of that was rolled way back, and the assault weapon ban, which was their crown jewel, they couldn't get rid of it fast enough. They actually brought that bill up in a committee that it wasn't even in front of at the time. They broke their own rules, the Democrats did, to get that bill in committee and kill it right at the very beginning before anything else happened. I've never seen anything like that so quickly, and it was gone. But it will be back, I'm sure, if these elections don't go right. So that's the biggest threat right now, is what will be coming up next year if the same people maintain control. Now, one of the Democrats' key gun controllers lost his primary. He was gonna run for lieutenant governor and try to keep his seat just in case. And he was telling everybody, "Oh, you can vote for me twice." Well, as it turned out, nobody wanted to vote for him once, so so he lost. And he was one of their crown guys pushing gun. He lived for gun control, so he's gone. And so the thing that I think is being missed here is there were 8 million new gun owners that came in late last year and early this year, and most of those are people that didn't think people needed guns. And what's happened is they defunded the police, and a lot of these people thought, well, I can always call 911. Well, those of us know anything about how that works have known that, well, no, you better be able to protect yourself. The police aren't going to be there like this. It doesn't work that way. But some people have that fantasy, and that fantasy was popped when they started seeing police being defunded, and so they become gun owners. And the trend is towards gun ownership right now, big time. People are concerned, and when you get concerned, you're worried about your safety, your family. The best tool you can have is a firearm. Get some training, learn the laws, and you have a firearm and to protect yourself. And we're seeing more and more of that. The trend is going the direction for gun rights, which is absolutely critical with everything else going on in the country right now. Again, when we lose that canary, we're in some real hot water. It was, we coordinated with the Capitol Police to make sure they had, and they told us, yeah, they only had these containers there that if we wanted, we could bring bags and put them by the trash cans. So it was actually part of the plan, but some of it was, we didn't really organize certain people. People just showed up and started picking stuff up.
I think that's
Oh, it does.
huge. I mean, 50,000 people show up, and then you leave the place. It's perfect.
Oh, you know how it would normally have looked with that many people.
Nobody was arrested. As far as I know, no negligent discharge.
No, and you had blacks and whites, you had gays, you had straights, you had Christians, you had everything. It was a slice of America, which gun ownership actually is. Now, sometimes some communities, I think in black communities a lot, the gun owners are in the closet because a lot of times people in that community don't look favorably upon gun ownership, but that doesn't mean there's not gun ownership there. Decent people wanting to protect themselves. So, but yeah, that made national news as well. The picking up. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Justin Williams. I'm a candidate for Maryland State Delegate.
Okay.
And I don't know how much you know about your neighbors up in Maryland, but we face a Democrat supermajority in both houses.
Yeah.
And we're probably headed towards the trifecta next year in our governor election. Legislatively, how do you stand up to these gun grabbers when there's so many and so outnumbered?
Yeah, well, it's a tough question. I've been asked that many times from people in California and New York. I look at Illinois. Illinois historically they were the last state to get any kind of a permit. They were the last state. And what helped them was the courts. The courts said, Illinois, you've got to come up with a method where citizens can carry a gun, or we're going to strike down all of your gun control. That got their attention. Unfortunately, they priced out the poor. If you're in Illinois and if you're poor, the person that really needs the protection, they can't live in nice neighborhoods, they can't afford it. But what do you do in Maryland? Well, by the way, I have a Maryland permit, but it was not easy. That'd be a long story. Not easy. You've got Maryland shall issue is sort of a counterpart of ours that's up there. The courts, keep in mind, there's a very important court case headed to the Supreme Court, and that, if it went well, would probably affect the may issue position that you've got in Maryland, with New York, New Jersey, California. I think there's 8 states that are, that are still restrictive that way. So the courts may be one way to do it, but just getting gun owners activated, that'll be the key. I mean, that, again, if you had a huge rally up there, you might be able to put the kibosh on that. You just have to be active. You cannot give up. In fact, the harder you're being oppressed, the harder you need to push back. That's your only thing, is to say, we're not giving up, we're not rolling over. Every inch of ground you're going to take, you're going to have to fight for it, big time. So I would talk to Maryland shall issue if you haven't done that, and get active and get elected. Yes. Any other questions? My time is up, but I thought I had a few minutes. Yeah. One more. Okay, yes, sir.
You said in the call and the discussions, there's no one talking about guns currently, bringing up. Well, I think that needs to come up. There needs to be questions to bring to and make the Democrats answer these questions. Right now they can hide and not answer.
Yeah, and it's happening it's pretty real quiet everywhere. Yeah, it needs to come up. We need to know the answers to this stuff. Youngkin he's quiet on the whole thing. So he's not talking about it either. So the fact that it didn't come up during the debate meant that neither one of them really wanted to talk about it. So, but other candidates, Winsome Sears and Miyares, they're happy to talk about this stuff. Winsome, who's running for lieutenant governor, she's got lots of photos of her holding an AR-15. She served in the military, and she's proud of that. And that's what you're really looking for: some good, strong candidates. But I wish we really needs to come up in a debate. I don't know if there's going to be another debate. It took forever for them both to agree to have a debate at all. So I'm hoping that another debate would be good, and it'd be great to have the moderator ask some questions like that. Let's bring it out. Let's talk about it. People need to know. There's a lot riding on the line. But everything McAuliffe pretty much know McAuliffe. He's not an unknown entity. He was governor for 4 years. And again, before all this, before the debates, he was making it clear his position. But we'll see what happens. But right now we have that trifecta you're worried about, and it's sometimes it's better if you have a little bit of a blend in there to in whatever direction. But I think the elections, it's going to be very, very interesting, and I've got my fingers crossed that gun owners are going to turn out in number, and we're going to turn this ship around and stop sailing towards the rocks and start heading out into where we should be. All right. Well, I thank all of you for coming out. I'll be around if you have any other questions, if you want to ask me anything, and stay in the fight. Thank you.